Hey guys, quick thing, quick announcement. We have another video. Before you watch this video, please like, subscribe, and comment, and hit the notification bell. Do that for me. Bye. So I feel like when you and I, first of all, you and I talk, if not every day, at least every other day on the phone, especially during quarantine, because you and I grew a lot closer. I mean, we've always been friends, but I think that Black Lives Matter, Nubia, we just started bonding because, I don't know if we're allowed to say this, but we were mostly bonding, laughing at how, like, crazy BB is.
How extremely meticulous BB is.
So during Nubia, it would just be, like, everyone sitting around, and then, like, me and Pepp in the corner, always eating. One of us has food. And then, like, eating the other's food, and then, like, laughing, and BB's trying to like, be so...
BB's got announcements, darling. Announcements.
And then you and I are being the...
BB has an announcement.
And then you and I are being the bad kids in the corner, just, like, laughing and cutting up the whole time. And I feel like that was, I don't know, somehow during Nubia, our bond just got really strong. So we've been talking so much. So when you called me and said, when we decided to have another talk, at the time, I was like, yes, girl, let's get that. Let's sit down and have another talk. Our last one was so well received. Let's do another one. But this morning, I think that was like maybe 2 days ago or a day ago. I don't even know. Time is so whatever these days. But over the course of, like, everything, this morning I was like, I feel a little bit exhausted at the idea of having a discussion today.
I feel the same way. I mean, and it's not just the exhaustion of having a discussion. For me, I feel exhausted at the idea of having to deal with this or having to think about this. I want to be thinking about I want to be thinking about doing something in drag or being creative or I'm releasing an album. So I was supposed to be making an announcement about that right now. But it's, and I think about this, as a Black queer person, I never, this month, for the past 3 or 4 years or longer, I have never really turned off that switch, that socially conscious activism switch, because the minute I do, guess what? Here's another thing.
Yep.
Just when you were ready to relax and watch your movie or take a couple of days just to disappear into the ethos of whatever, here's another one.
Exactly. Yep. And so last time we talked, I mean, you talked about the Ahmaud Arbery video, which was so insane. And I went back, and even though you told me not to watch it, I went and watched it anyway. I wish that I hadn't. But then this George Floyd video is just the great. It was so hard to watch. And what's even harder to watch, even for me, for I think because I saw so much of myself in this other video that you told me about, and I saw it on Trinity's timeline. It's just this video of this I'm saying kid, he was not a kid. He was a grown adult person. He was not a child. He was 21 years old. This 21-year-old, but he looks like a teenager. And he's in his, like, front yard, and he's, like, got his hands up, and there's these cops pointing guns at him. And he is like, it is terror. Like, if he was white, he'd be pale as a fucking ghost. He was, like, so scared, and he's screaming, like, please don't shoot me. And he's crying like a child. Like, he's, like, crying. Yeah. He's bawling.
It's so vulnerable.
Yeah. And he's on the ground, like, laying flat with his hands as far in front of him as they can go. And he's just begging and screaming, please don't shoot me. Please, please. Like, when I say bawling, guys, he's bawling.
He's also saying, I'm not going to move. I don't want to move, but I want to comply. He's doing his best to demonstrate to the officers that he's willing to comply, but he knows that if he stands up and makes any wrong gesture, that could be the end of his life. And
curtains.
We've said this. We've had this conversation. I've heard it on TV. I've heard it seen it on the online. The hypothetical of, I would do this, but as a Black person, I'm afraid because the cops might do this to me. And I've seen reactions from people saying, oh, you're just overreacting, or, oh, that cops aren't really like that. Does anyone have any reason to question why we would be afraid of an interaction with the police after just 7 days. And those are the big ones we've talked about. But there's plenty others. There's a one where this girl was getting punched in the face by the cops. Yep. There's a trans man who wasn't caught on video.
I saw
Tony
this
McDade.
too.
Yeah. And so there's so many instances of our community being at the very least, not given the chance to prove that they're not doing anything wrong. They're not given the chance to show that them walking, that they belong to walk there, that they live in the neighborhood, that it's only Skittles. They're not given a chance to show that. And I think that's, for me, the thing that is so enraging to me is the exact opposite. Not today, but this week, at the same time that this George Floyd video was gaining controversy, there was another news because there was a most wanted white man, I can't remember his name, in the news because he was suspected of murdering, which means, chances are he murdered. I think he did murder, but so he was suspected of murdering 2 people, and then there was some kidnapping involved. He had kidnapped another person or something, but he had committed some crimes, allegedly, and he was on the run. And they were nationwide, APB or whatever, looking for him. And there was some surveillance camera where they, he's here, he's there. And there was like an alert, he's considered armed and dangerous. Do not approach. The cops are looking for him. He's most wanted. Blah, 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 blah. So they find him and they take him in. He's in jail, or he's with the court right now. They arrested him peacefully. It's fine. Mm-hmm. They know he murdered someone.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, just like so one of the things that I saw that really I posted. Let me actually look it up on my Twitter. I don't want to misquote myself or President Donald Trump in this moment. And I've started there was a whole thing where folks kept being like, "Not my president," this or saying I'm saying President Donald Trump because that for me shows the severity of the fact that this person is the president of the United States. This is. That's oh shit, Mitch. Did she leave for you too?
I don't know what happened. Sorry,
welcome back,
President
Mary.
Donald Trump, because it shows.
I'm back, Mitch. Oh, Mitch is muted a little bit. So I'm gonna read this quote. It said, so Donald Trump had these 2 tweets. Okay, one was from January 20th, and it said, "To the leaders of Iran," and this is in all caps, "do not kill your protesters. Thousands have already been killed or imprisoned by you, and the world is watching. More importantly, the USA is watching. Turn your internet back on and let the reporters roam free. Stop the killing of your great Iranian people." This is what he just said. That's his message to Iran.
How do you feel about that? I want to know. You agree with that, right? Or
I agree with that. Don't kill your protesters. Do not be locking them up for protesting. Let the media, let the world have access to the internet and let people see what's going on. That makes sense. And then just last night he tweeted out, and the Twitter has removed this tweet because they thought it was inciting violence. He tweeted out, "These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd," thugs in all caps, "and I won't let that happen. I spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you!" Exclamation point. So I'm so intrigued by the fact that when it comes to the Iranian government, he's like, do not shoot them, do not block the media, stop arresting them. And when it comes to Americans, they are thugs. We're gonna shoot them. And not only that, but recently you posted a thing on Twitter today, or yesterday, I can't remember when you posted, saying this is so bizarre of camera people getting arrested. And I was like, is it bizarre? Donald Trump has been saying that the news is the enemy for 4 years now, 5 years. Actually, if you include before he was running for president, he's been calling them fake news and inciting the idea that they are the enemy for so long now that, of course, after a while, people will start to believe it. He's the president of the United States of America.
Yeah, and you don't even have to go to his dealings with Iran. You can go back to during the quarantine, because obviously the context is a little bit different when you're talking about foreign relations and then what's happening
Yeah.
in our own country. And that's fair. But talking about during the quarantine, these the protesters, again, are very fine people. The protesters in Michigan taking their guns, going to the thing. These people are, he doesn't even mention that there's, a few bad apples, that there's some people, causing mayhem. At every protest, there's going to be someone doing that. He didn't even acknowledge that. He just went right for, these people are fed up and they're tired because they want to get back to work and they deserve to have a country. And so I support all the protesters. I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly what he said.
I'll give you the direct quote. The direct quote.
Well, then tell me what he said.
It says the governor of Michigan should give a little and put out the fire. These are very good people, but they are angry. They want their lives back safely. See them, talk to them, make a deal. Those are the exact words.
Why I shouldn't be screaming. So why the difference? Why the difference? Why? I mean, I know why the difference, but the
answer is obvious.
None of those people are. It's someone walking around with a gun is not like, oh, I want to sit down and talk to them. That's not the feeling that I get. And so if you can call all the protesters thugs, then
very good people, but the other ones.
And the other ones are very good people. Why the difference? They're both angry. Can we at least say that we recognize that both groups are in pain and angry and want to be heard? Can we at least acknowledge that both groups want that? That the people who were protesting in Michigan wanted to be heard and that they were angry, and that the people protesting in Minneapolis wanted to be heard and that they're angry? Then we can go into what are they angry about. Okay, one group is their jobs and saying signs that they want haircuts. The other group
haircuts, bitch. Haircuts, bitch. Fucking haircuts. Fucking that shit, girl.
Okay, I want to talk about another thing, and this just goes deeper into it. And we talked about this a little bit, and I don't know what you can talk about and what you can't talk about. Mm-hmm. But I posted online.
I'm already pulling it up. Keep going. You want me to pull up your tweet exactly?
A tweet. You read the tweet because I don't remember what it said, but.
So Peppermint's tweet, and I'm looking it up. And by the way, y'all, we're because we're trying to get these out to y'all quickly, so you can like be with us and join us in these conversations. We will be leaving in chunks where we're like talking and like searching stuff. So deal with us. We're basically creating a morning show at this point, but we're doing it at 7:00 at night. You remember what day you tweeted it out, Pep?
It was 2 days ago, but go to my go to my Instagram. It's on my Instagram. Timeline, my three posts ago.
I see. I'm looking it up. Yeah. So basically, what was happening is me and Pep were talking about silence. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the phrase "silence is violence." It basically refers that like after there comes a point where you being quiet and not saying anything, you are now siding with the oppressor. So Pep tweeted out, "I follow lots of queer artists. It bothers me the lack of public acknowledgement about what's going on here and right now." Everyone isn't an activist, but even as artists, if you aren't reacting to your surroundings and reflecting back, what are you doing and what do you want out of it?
And so I have been getting several, not a lot, but a handful, and there's always going to be dissension, and that's fine. But I've gotten some people commenting and telling me, either in DMs or in comments, that that it's not fair for me to bully, that I shouldn't contribute to cancel culture, and that I should just allow people who can't speak out on this the right to not speak out. And I agree with all of that. I would not consider that tweet, which is the only time I've publicly spoken about this, I would not consider that bullying.
Well, also in true Pep fashion, what you said was so much nicer. You know what I wrote? What I wrote was, I'm just not political is so over. The time has passed. We need to hear your voices now. While you find your voice, black people are being killed every day. Every day. Trans people are being murdered back to back. It doesn't have to be poetry. Just say it. Black Lives Matter. And so then I ended up talking to several popular drag race girls about why it is important for you to say Black Lives Matter and why we don't have time for you to evolve and find your voice and write a poem and do a photo shoot and make it glamorous and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, bitch, just say it. And in my opinion, this is why you need to say it. And I told one of these girls, like, I'm so sick of getting canceled. And I said, you're not canceled. You know who's canceled? George Floyd is canceled.
It's
He is
canceled.
canceled.
That's canceled.
And he's never uncanceled. That's what canceled is.
It's not. We cannot center the feelings. We cannot center the feelings and the emotions and the we cannot give preferential treatment to obvious and self-admitted ignorance and complacency. We cannot. It's human to not be aware, and that's okay. You can educate yourself. It's human to be afraid of what the reaction's going to be and maybe deciding not to engage. That's okay. That's your right. But that can't be nobody who wants, like, that's like saying, hey, we would like you to pay everyone to pay taxes, but just in case you're worried about paying taxes, you don't have to. So if you don't want to, don't even think about it. We can't make that the main issue. How you feel, being scared about saying Black Lives Matter or being afraid to use your voice in a way that's political because it goes against the brand, what it does is highlight that you can thrive and live and make money, and you never have to talk about people being
privilege.
Killed.
Yep.
That is the definition of whatever kind of privilege you want to talk about. For white people, it's white privilege. If you're an amoeba in the sea, it's amoeba privilege. It's privilege. It is privilege to be able to exist in a world where people are getting killed off camera. I don't even know who's getting killed. Somebody's being shot right now, statistically.
Exactly.
But in a world where damn near we can agree every day, if not every week, a horrible, tragic, senseless death is being committed, and you can just say, how do I look? Buy my new lipstick. I don't have...
Yeah.
What world is that? Because listen, I cannot tell you how many times I've watched similar situations and some of those same people instantly engage when it comes to other issues that do affect them. And all I'm saying is, I am not a gay man and I'm not a gay woman, but I marched, and I know you did too. You definitely marched for marriage equality. I was not getting married, but I want everybody to have the right to do that.
Yeah.
Before, I know it seems like a different time because it's legal now. Hopefully it will remain legal. But I marched and fought for, I did everything that I could for marriage equality. I devoted 10 years of my public life as a drag entertainer and my platform, my small platform in drag, to AIDS and HIV education and prevention and vaccine with the Vaccine Trials Network. You would not go more than 2 weeks to a show and not know that I was doing something with AIDS and HIV.
Yeah. You were the honorary queen of vaccine. I remember this when Stella Toro passed the title on you.
Yeah, and I do not happen to be HIV positive, but it still affects me because I care about it. And I see that it affects other people, and it does. So I do what I can. And so all I'm asking is, can you help us? When Black trans women are murdered, I talk about it, and not that many people listen. And that's okay. That's fine. People don't have to tune in. But all I'm saying is, there's a conversation, and this is getting worse and worse and worse. Yeah. And being disengaged gleefully and blissfully, like ignorance is bliss. That's the statement. Living in that world where you can just not engage and like still interact with the culture, and in a way that you're picking and choosing, it shows a sense of callous. And so if I'm viewed as a bully, because some people that apparently follow me, some were saying that I'm being a bully by even acknowledging that it hurts me that I'm seeing my people being killed in video.
The people that called you a bully, I don't even want to guess what they look like. I think I have the answer to that question.
And yeah, and you know, I think it's laughable because I'm not even, the way that I spoke about it was in a way to be as kinding and compassionate as I possibly could, even in that tweet. And
Well,
so I
told
did not call anybody by name.
One of the white folks that I was talking to, prominent white people who were not tweeting about Black Lives Matter, not engaging in this discourse because they didn't feel like, they just didn't want to. I said, let me tell you this. All of your black friends who are seeing that you're not tweeting about it, first of all, we all notice that you're not tweeting. All of your black friends, all of your brown friends, all notice that you're not engaged. And we know that you picked up your phone, you saw a video of George Floyd being murdered, you went, ooh, yikes. Put your phone down, and then you turned the TV back on and kept playing a video game, or you finished Big Little Lies or whatever you did. Like, that's what you did, and we all know you did. We know you saw it. We know you went ooh woo, and then just went man, that's not me. And then you kept going about your life. That's like looking out your window, seeing a murder, and being like, not for me. Close the door and just keep doing your thing.
No, it's not. No, it's not. That's too, like, if my cousin did that, that's what that is. If the little neighbor down the street did that, that's looking out the window and closing your blind. What this is you being on stage during an award ceremony and walking across the stage, getting ready to make a speech, and someone gets killed in the room and you not acknowledging it. Because we are looking at you. So when you decide to tell us to buy your t-shirt or to buy your new pink lipstick or to listen to Lady Gaga's Chromatica, which I'm not hating on Chromatica, but when you're convincing us to engage in that, instead of letting us know, all of your followers know that it's okay to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter and that they don't have to engage either, that's what that's saying. That's saying this issue that the whole world is talking about is not even important enough for me to talk about. Well, let's talk about Lady Gaga instead.
Yeah, and
that's what it's saying.
And I kept telling all my white drag queen friends who are doing this, I'm like, what you're doing, if you're a white drag queen from RuPaul's Drag Race, you are directly benefiting from the hard work of black, queer, and trans people who have done everything to let you be where you are. If you ever done a tongue pop, or you said reading is fundamental, or if you're on a show hosted by a black queer person, or if you've done any of that stuff, if you've lip synced to a black song, if you've done any of that stuff, what you're doing is you get to directly benefit from all the stuff that black culture has, but you don't want to contribute back. You don't want to say anything. You don't even want to do the bare minimum and stand up and say, hey, I just want to say out loud that Black Lives Matter. But you do want to pull, but you don't want to stand up and say anything. And here's the full thing. That's your right to do so. But bitch, when I tell you, I will never forget that for the rest of my life. Just know that I will never forget that.
I just think that this is to put it into perspective, and it's going to take it out of context for most people because a lot of people weren't alive during this time, but we just lost, not to change the subject at all, Larry Kramer, legendary activist. During the AIDS
inspiration
epidemic,
behind The Normal Heart, if anyone saw The Normal Heart on Broadway.
Yeah. And please watch How to Survive a Plague if you can watch that. It's a really great documentary. For anybody that doesn't know, the AIDS epidemic was major in the 80s. It's still obviously a huge problem, but it was much more deadly then, and people were dying left and right. You just Google it if you're unaware. And this was an issue that was at first showing up in the gay communities in the large cities of San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles, and it was never really spoken about publicly. They didn't talk about it on the news, and our president for I think 2 or 3 years didn't even mention it. Ronald Reagan
wouldn't even say the word. Wouldn't even say the word.
Wouldn't even say the word. In fact, at a press conference, and I watched this on a recent show, at a press conference, probably a few months into the epidemic, a reporter said, there's this disease out there that's killing a bunch of gay men. What do you think about it? And the press reporter, or the press secretary at the time, I don't remember his name, was like, oh, well, I don't got it. So, and laughed and moved on to the next thing. I don't know anything about it. And just shrugged it off. And so Ronald Reagan not saying something, he could have been like, well, I'm not gay and that's not my community. He could have said that, but we all know that his platform is influential, to say the least, as a president. And so
to the very
him
least.
saying, yeah, to say that and engaging in the conversation opened up and gave permission for other people to engage in the conversation, and let's put money towards it. Let's find a way to do something about it. Until that, no one felt like they needed to. And so if you can understand why it's important for us, for the president at the time to talk about AIDS and HIV, if you can understand why it's important, if it made you feel good if you are an LGBT person and it made you feel good, or if you're a Republican and it made you feel good when Barack Obama said LGBT people and said them by name in his speech when he was inaugurated, or not his inaugural speech, but the night he won the presidency and became the nominee, or president-elect, if it made you even feel good for some reason, when even Donald Trump held that upside-down LGBTs for Trump flag, if that made you feel good, it made you feel good because you were being publicly acknowledged. And when you are publicly acknowledged, you are acknowledging someone's humanity. And so
their existence.
Cornel West, existence. And Cornel West said, justice is what love looks like in public. And it's very important that we are publicly acknowledged. And if you have a platform, it's not the time to, and I'm not attacking people who have platforms who don't want to talk, but like you said, we notice and we feel it. And your absence also says something. Even though you feel like you're just not talking about it and you only want to talk about this fun thing over here, even you deciding to not acknowledge it says something. Yeah. And so do you know what that is saying? That's the question.
And one of the things that I said I had talks with several people about why you need to say Black Lives Matter. I said, here's the thing. If you, let's say, okay, I'll say this out loud. So me and Katya agreed to have it. I told Katya I would have a discussion with her like this one. And I was saying, here's the thing. When you are Katya and you have access to over 1 million little white girls who live in homes with Karens who would call the cops on black people for existing, whose father might be a cop who would kneel on the neck of a black man. When Katya types Black Lives Matter in her Twitter, then because this little girl, because Susie loves Katya, now Black Lives Matter to Susie. So now what we have is a Black Lives Matter person in the house of a person who would go out and call the cops on black people because they're on the street, who would kneel on the neck of a black person there. So yeah, you tweeting is powerful. You know what? People are saying like Twitter doesn't have a lot of power. It does. Twitter got Trump elected. Twitter also got 4 cops who were kneeling on that man fired, and it's probably going to get them arrested as well. So Twitter does have power. So when you stand up and you say to your fans Black Lives Matter, they believe Black Lives Matter, and now the Black Lives Matter is moving to a place where it needs to be. Now they're saying it to the people who would actually go out and be egregious and have a negative effect or a deathly effect on the effects of black people in America. And that is why you need to say Black Lives Matter. That's why. It takes nothing out of your day. It takes no time to type it up. If you have an Android, you can use swipe it in 3 seconds. It's posted on your fucking, and it doesn't take anything from you at all. It takes nothing from you.
Let me put it into a different perspective for that, like exactly what you said. We have an issue in this country of people who are experiencing homelessness, right? Mm. And many people who are experiencing homelessness means that they don't have somewhere to live or a safe place to sleep. Many times it means that they don't have access to money or even some nutrition. I'm not generalizing, but I'm saying that these are some things that people can deal with. And people who are experiencing homelessness, we can't say, okay, how are we going to solve this problem? We need to raise money and build new buildings. Let's say what it takes to solve the problems that create people experiencing homelessness. Let's say, hypothetically, that what it takes to solve homelessness is raising a lot of money and building new buildings. Mm-hmm. If that's what it takes to solve it, we can't be like, oh, well, homeless people know that money needs to be raised, so let them raise it and let them talk about it and let them build new buildings. I'm not homeless, so I'm not going to talk about it. who's going to, I just lost my earring. Who is going to talk? Homeless people experiencing homelessness cannot be the only ones engaged in figuring out how to solve homelessness, because it's not going to work. They are the people who are they are the receiving end of this problem. It's the people who are not experiencing homelessness. The opposite, people in a different situation who are not having those problems, who need to solve the problem. And so in this situation, in a situation where racism is obviously an issue in this country still, it can't just be the people getting shot marching. It can't just be us.
And not only that, let me tell you right now, fixing the racism problem in America cannot be done by 12% of the population. Mama, we're going to need the other fucking 82%, did I do that math properly? 72% to join the fight and talk about this as well.
82.
78,
78.
All right. Listen, I'm a comedian. I'm not a mathematician. But we're gonna need the other part of the population to
whatever. Who cares?
Who cares? We're gonna need the other part of the population to step in and join the conversation as well. I want to talk to you about something else that I've been experiencing, because it's this moment where you feel, when you are a nurse, or if you are a teacher, or if you are an essential worker like a grocery store worker or a cab driver, you don't necessarily feel guilty going back to work in the midst of something like this. You don't feel guilty about selling food in the middle of a Black Lives Matter movement. But I've been noticing that people online have been attacking people. Like, there was this whole thing where Shea Coulee just released this new beer.
Oh.
And folks are trying to come for Shea and being like, I can't believe you're promoting this thing in this time. And I'm like, let me just say one thing. The fact that racism has affected black people in America has been caused by white people. And then now that we've been affected by that, by all that stuff, now that we're bringing it to the front, now we also have to feel guilty about continuing our lives while simultaneously saying Black Lives Matter. I don't see the correlation between saying you can't go back to work and do your thing and say Black Lives Matter at the same time. And folks are trying to make her feel bad about this, or even make us feel bad. There are times where I wake up and I don't feel like getting up and telling a joke or getting up and doing a thing. But also, it is still my job. I have to go to work, and I will not be made to feel guilty about being negatively affected by racism, which is caused by white people in America. And now, as a black person, I'm not even allowed to go back to work because it's all coming to roost.
If we can't force everyone who's not black to just put a little picture that says you shouldn't kill black people, if we can't force them to do that, then which we can't, then you can't force the black people to not try to make money even though we're getting shot and killed.
Exactly. So, like, anyone who's listening to this who is engaged in any of that idiocy, in my opinion, of trying to make black people feel bad about doing other things outside of Black Lives Matter simultaneously, because I'm not going to lie, I do feel guilty.
Our only response? Why is that job? Why is that job just 100% our responsibility, but nobody else has to engage in it? I don't understand that.
And not only 100% responsibility, now it has to be your full-time job. You have to quit everything else and do just this. And there are moments when I was thinking the other day, because you and I have this digital get down meet and greet with Monet Exchange coming up pretty soon, and I was like, there was a moment where I thought to myself, do I need to delay this? So because of this whole circumstance? And I thought to myself, I said, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I still have to do my job, and I still want to be able to continue everything that, all the stuff that I'm working for as a black person, or just a person in general. I don't want to have all that delayed or put back because racism been done fucked up America.
Yeah. I completely agree. I don't want to either, especially in a situation that especially in a situation where most of us aren't working. And it's no, when the country goes back tomorrow or in a week, we're probably not on that list as queens and people who work in nightlife. We're not
and especially
working.
As New Yorkers.
Yeah, and so, we have to figure out a way to do it the best we can. And I know there's a lot of people that don't get it, and no one can say that Shea Coulee is not an outspoken
Girl.
person when it comes to using her platform to benefit people of color and black people specifically. Shea Coulee is about as black as it gets. So she's doing what just her living and breathing and thriving, and the fact that she talks about this sometimes is more than enough of a reason that we should support whatever endeavor she's trying to do. It's not destroying the community. She's trying to help a black person herself, and that's okay.
Yeah. I called Shay the other day and I said, Mama, I have not drank in 12 years, but bitch, I'm relapsing for this beer this summer. I said, I think go.
No.
I'm kidding, I'm not going to relapse. But I called her and I said, girl, I'm going to promote this because, like, seeing her out there doing something so amazing and just being black as fuck and with her fucking beer, which it looks just so, like, it just looks so, I don't drink
so
beer.
Beautiful.
I ain't drank a beer in
delicious.
12 years. Bitch, you and me both don't drink, but we getting fucked up this summer.
I've never had beer, and I was like, damn, that looks thirst quenching.
That's what I said too, girl. That's what I said too. I'm not drinking her beer this summer, but I will post a picture acting like I'm drinking it.
Hello. Send me a case, bitch, in case I got some guests that come over.
Yeah, pour it out, fill it up with kombucha and be like, ooh, look at me go, girl.
Beer.
Yeah, girl. I mean, the nation's just so upside down. I'm glad that we keep like having these chats, because what the people who watching this don't know is that we have these twice a day, whether we're recording or not. Real tea, honey. That's the gospel truth, Miss Thing.
It's true, and I'm glad that we're able to do it. I'm hopeful that people are able to see that, like, what needs to happen and what we're trying to do is take advantage of the moment that we're in, the fact that everyone is able to see this and people are focused and everyone is aware. It's undeniable what's happening in the country right now, especially with what's happening. And I just want to ask you one more thing about the reaction of people's reactions to what's happening in Minneapolis, and like not only the protesters, but then now it's some of the there's fires and things like that. And some people are I think there's definitely there's some splitting on this. People are saying that, people should not riot, people should not loot. It's always wrong, don't do it. Just vote. One guy told me on my thing, don't pressure white people to talk about Black Lives Matter. Just talk about it yourself and do what you can, and let's just encourage people to vote. And I agree.
What in the segregation is going on? What in the Plessy v. Ferguson is this motherfucker talking about?
He basically was like, mind your business and let's all vote. And I was like, okay, I can appreciate that voting is something that we should participate in, but it's not the only thing. There's no way that you are going to convince me that vote as a black woman, and I'm screaming, I know my neighbors can hear me. There's no way that you can convince me.
Is a black woman screaming? Is a black woman screaming up there?
That voting in this election is the only thing that's going to solve racism forever. You're never going to convince me of that. And so why can't we do both, especially considering the fact that we right now have a president that there's a chance that we could either be coming down from the first wave or going into a second wave of coronavirus, COVID-19. It's possible.
Well, Dr. Fauci has assured us that we will Dr. Fauci is 100% convinced that we will be getting a second wave come October.
Which means that we will be dealing with coronavirus and potential shutdowns in November, which means there's a lot of people that can't go or won't go or it will at least be putting their life at risk if they're in a high-risk group to go and vote. And so, obviously, I think, not to be political, but I do think that, obviously, it makes sense. Is there another way that we could do it? That's a normal question to ask. And there are plenty of other states that do it. Gerrymandering, which is splitting up the districts so that the population's vote counts as less and doesn't even reach a certain amount to be counted. Gerrymandering is real and exists I would say predominantly, but at least a lot in urban communities of color. Gerrymandering
100%.
is real. Voter suppression is real. And then also, not to mention, we are 18% of the population, like you said, I don't remember.
12%.
12% of the population, and we are that we make up most of the people in jail. And there's all these people with felonies now that can't vote. Voting is not the answer. If you're talking about our country, black people voting, black people cannot politically vote themselves out of being murdered by some cops on the street. We can't.
Well, I think the statistics say that about I might be getting this wrong, but about a third of black men in Alabama legally can't vote.
Yes.
Isn't that wild?
Once we got the right to legally vote in this country in the 60s, someone decided, and when I say someone, I mean a whole lot of people, many of them in government, someone who had the power made the decision of like, okay, this paper says these people can vote, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to say you have to be able to do this, and you can never do this. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure that they have everything that says you can't have in order to vote. And whatever it says, we're going to take that away from you.
And to go back a few steps, that person who came in, who slid into your DMs telling you not to tell people to riot, I'm going to say this. If you're a queer person and you directly benefit from the Stonewall riots, you get to go out in the streets. You get to hold your partner's hand in public. You get to say you're loud and proud and be gay. And you get to every day, oh my God, 51 years since the Stonewall riots. Yay. Yay. The riots helped us. But then you get to turn around and condemn this riot because you don't think it directly benefits you, which the truth is, this may shock you, but black rights are human rights. This does affect you on a multitudinous amount of levels. Even if it's indirect, Mary, it does affect you. So if you're going to celebrate the Stonewall riots and then condemn these riots, I think you need to take a step back and ask yourself why you look at it that way.
Yeah. Riots are the direct effect of people not feeling heard. Protesting is the peaceful way to do that. And when protesting doesn't work, because let me tell you, the protests, let's talk about this, because we didn't jump to people breaking through Target windows. The first day, it was people peacefully marching in the street. And then what were the images that we saw? Police driving by or on foot, hosing the people down with hoses and tear gas. To the peaceful protesters. To the peaceful... This was not a riot. There were no buildings on fire on that day. This was people walking and saying, we want change. And if the response to that is, you're going to attack people and expect them not to fight back when they know that they are literally fighting for their lives? Because someone will get shot and killed by a police officer. It's just the way it's been happening.
And at some point, someone's going to have to acknowledge the fact that like people think that black folks just going out acting crazy, and then we're going to ignore the fact that black people are met with more aggression from authorities than white people are. So a bunch of black folks showing up, by the way, with no weapons, no weapons,
not a weapon.
As opposed to white people showing up with their Corona mask and their rifles, yelling, I need a manicure, my nails look a mess. Then you need to acknowledge the fact that these riots are a direct response to black people being brutalized by the cops.
That's what it is. And only a couple of weeks ago, before any of these stories were in the news, a few weeks ago, I was outraged at seeing black men and people of color in New York and in other places being beaten up or dragged or arrested, but always arrested with a side of violence, beaten up, hit, kicked, videos of that happening because they weren't wearing their mask or they weren't 6 feet apart. They weren't rioting and looting. These were people that were just, if anything, I mean, I think it's stupid, and I think you should wear a mask, and I think you should socially distance, but I don't think you should get punched in the face by a police officer. Not when those police officers are not punching everyone in the face. If the police officers are like, we need a new way to enforce coronavirus, and you're gonna punch everybody, well then bring it. Then I want to see you punch little white girls the same way that you're punching black folks.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I know that sounds crazy.
No, Pep, someone's gonna pull a clip of Pep going, I want to see you punch a little white girl.
No, God, we have to. Oh, damn it! I don't want that, but it should be the same treatment.
No,
It should
I
be the same
understand.
treatment.
Yeah, I understand. Sorry,
You know, like you can't just go into neighborhoods and punch all the black people and drag them to jail for doing what you're not like. It's just, and so this is where we began. This is where we began.
Yeah, and I want to. The last thing I want to bring up too before we go is I want to talk about the fact that these news outlets, New York Times, LA Times, Fox News, they're all reporting this as like the death of George Floyd, the arrest of George Floyd.
No, it's not death.
I'm like, you need to say the murder. Like, you need to say. I mean, let me look up the definition of the word murder right now. I mean, murder definition. The definition of the word murder is the unlawful, premeditated killing of one human being by another. So if these cops were fired from their jobs, that shows that it was unlawful. Killing these people using unnecessary force is unlawful. So based on this definition, it is murder. So why do we keep calling it death? Why are we calling it arrest? Why are we not calling it murder? And why are they not in jail?
Because I don't know, but I think that it's because we want to, not we, but the people who are calling it death want to remove the participation of anyone else that they would have to point a finger at. So, you know, if you call it a murder, then the very first thing that the mind goes to is, well, who committed the murder? And then now the attention's on that person. The best way to get around it is be like, oh, George Floyd just died. He just randomly died. It's
like
sad.
He had a heart attack or some shit. Like he just fell over and had a seizure.
Yeah,
Mary.
He just died. It's not connected to anything else. He just died. It's isolated. And I think that's the way that some of the people, maybe it's news media or whoever, I think that's the way that some people are kind of skating by and acknowledging, like President Trump said, it's sad. He basically was inferring that the fact that a human died, it's sad. That's what he said. He said it's sad. He didn't, and he said it was a very bad thing. But what's very bad? The fact that this man is now dead, or the fact that this man is now dead at the hands of the police, the people who are charged to protect and serve?
Yeah.
Which one's bad? I don't and so I think that's what it is. It allows people who say death, it gives them permission to just say, this is a man who's no longer alive, and that's very sad. And just to focus on how we feel when someone dies, it's just sad. But it doesn't really speak to the systemic issue, the systematic problem of violence against communities of color by the police.
I agree.
Just interject for a second. Did you see the autopsy release?
I did not.
Oh, no. What did the autopsy say?
Okay, first of all,
so the fact that he was that someone had their knee on his neck.
There were 4 adult males kneeling on this man, one with their knee on his neck, and they're acting like he just. The autopsy revealed no physical findings that support a diagnosis of traumatic asphyxia or strangulation. Mr. Floyd had underlying health conditions including coronary artery disease and hypersensitive heart disease. The combined effects of Mr. Floyd being restrained by the police, his underlying health conditions, and any potential intoxicants in his system likely contributed to his death. Is what
so
is being
basically
reported.
He's saying that toxicology and autopsy report is saying anything else killed this man. He probably died from any other reason except for not the people kneeling on his neck. It couldn't have been that.
Yeah, they're trying to make it seem like he would have just died on this day anyway.
Yeah, he would have just been dead. If this hadn't happened, he would have just dropped dead.
Which, I mean, I think this just goes to show that we have a system that is corrupt and crooked.
I really pray that report could be it's not a good term, but it's the linchpin or the turning point between where things are now getting better or worse.
Yeah.
I hope that they take another look at that. and make a decision, regardless of whatever the autopsy says. What that officer did was wrong, and a man is dead even if he would have died, even if he was having his own heart attack, and at 3 o'clock or whatever time this happened, he would have had a heart attack. At least, if he would have just been standing there by himself having a heart attack, somebody would have called, to get him an ambulance and sent him to the hospital. By the way, as a black man, he probably would have statistically had worse medical care and treatment anyway, because doctors are on record of saying that there's a sort of myth that black people have a higher tolerance for pain but complain more. Okay? But even if he had just had a heart attack randomly and somebody would have been able to take him to the hospital, the fact that if he was going to have his scheduled heart attack, the fact that these cops were kneeling on him means that they were not able to assist him in that manner, and that's why he is dead. He is dead because of that interaction with the police, no matter what way you look at it. And so if they decide to go through the justice system and release these police officers, because the main one has been arrested. Release these police officers. That's not a good idea.
And not only that, but like if someone has health problems, but the catalyst for their death is based on what you did to them, then you are still responsible. If someone has asthma on the streets and I punch them in the neck and they die from that because they have asthma, I don't get to be released. I don't get to be like, well, he had asthma. It doesn't get to be anyone else would have survived this. That is not how that works. If I hit someone on the street with asthma or someone with a cane, if I knock them down because they're older or whatever, they end up getting hurt more, I would still get charged because I was the catalyst for their death.
And so at the end of the day, the moral of the story, and this is how I look at it, and this is what I see, is that when we have similar situations and someone's dead or a crime is committed, when someone is dead, it's usually the blame and the working towards finding who to blame it lands on the black person. Whatever black person's involved, it was their fault. If the black person got shot, it's because he had an underlying health condition, or it's because he looked to the left. What was he doing? If the black person gets killed, if a white person gets killed, it's not. Nobody's like, well, he shouldn't have looked to the left. Nobody's saying that. I feel it's as if it's just so frustrating. Like we can see the other situations where a killer or a murderer who is white has gone in and shot. There's the guy who shot up that movie theater. We've given every excuse for him to not get the death penalty, and to not that I believe that he should, but I'm just saying every single excuse for him to arrive safely to the jail, and black people who have not shot up movie theaters are getting killed one by one by one. And now we're going in circles, but it really infuriates me. I
understand. It really gets you in, it makes you insane in your head. I mean, I look back to pictures of, what was that kid's name? Dylan Roof, who shot up their church, and how he was arrested. They walked to his house. They put him in a bulletproof vest.
So that he was protected?
It is a picture of Dylan Roof being escorted by the cops in a bulletproof vest, hands in front of him, completely unscathed. He shot up a full black church, and he's escorted by the police. Meanwhile, this other kid ran a red light. Who ran a red light?
Was it George Floyd that ran a red light?
No, the kid who was in his front yard laying on the ground, and they tackled his grandma. His grandma gets tackled for that, and this kid gets a police escort while wearing a bulletproof vest to go to jail. With
all the guns drawn on them. All the guns drawn on them. And the grandmother goes out to protect. I guess she's assuming, and I would have guessed myself, that she would be safe from this. She becomes a target and tackled in the. It's nonsensical, and so this is what we're saying is not fair. And if you are someone who is okay, let's say this real quick, because I've had more conversations than I expected to have this week with white people trying to figure out how to talk about this and deal with this in an effective way. And there's lots that we can talk about and do. I actually tweeted a resource for people. It sounds like remedial or like a bit of an overreaction, but I think it's helpful because clearly there are people who are concerned and are not able to, are having trouble reconciling their relationship to the racism in this country that kills black people over and over again. And so it's important that we allow them space to learn and grow and whatever they're going to do, especially if they want to be actively involved in it. And so part of the thinking for me is that if you're not talking about this publicly and acknowledging it publicly, then you are you might think you're just going about your life and just having your day, but really what you are doing is contributing to the other tens, hundreds, thousands of other white people in this country who have historically ignored and turned a blind eye when there was an injustice against a person of color. And what that does is it says to the system, the perpetrator, the people doing it, the cops committing the crime, or whoever, it says to the system, because racism is a system. Racism is a system. It says that you are willing to participate in this system without rocking the boat. And the one thing that the system of racism does not want, the system of racism does not care if black people are outside marching in the streets. System of racism doesn't care. The system of racism desperately needs the white people to not say anything when black people get killed. That's what the system of racism wants. And if you are a white person in this country and you are silent when a black person gets killed and you will not stand up and rock the boat, you don't need to be in the KKK. All you need to do is be quiet and let racism do its thing.
And that is why people say silence is violence. And that is why they say justice delayed is justice denied. If it takes a while, but the reason why justice delayed is justice denied makes sense is this. Because in the time that you delayed it, people were still dying. So it's denied for everyone who died from the time you started making your mind up to the time you got to where you were going to go. So all those people who didn't get to reach the other side of you evolving and coming up with whether or not you want to say Black Lives Matter, how you think it should matter, justice is denied for all of those people. All of them. And not just the ones who died, but also the ones who were hit, hurt, affected, bullied.
Arrested wrongfully.
Arrested. It doesn't have to be as extreme as death. All the other stuff that black people suffer from as well at the face of racism, they have had justice denied to them as well. We got to wrap up. It's about we've been one of our long legendary chats, girl.
Marathons.
Do we have anything else we should talk about before we go? I do want to encourage everyone to go. By the way, I have not been paid to do this from HBO. I know everyone knows I'm on HBO, but I have not been paid to do this from HBO. I started watching Legendary on HBO. I really love this show. I was in a private Zoom meeting at the launch party, and I just felt so amazed at the fact that I was in a fucking Zoom meeting with Laomi. Laomi was the first trans person I've ever seen on TV. She was on, I think the show was America's Best Dance Crew.
Dance Crew.
And I just remember thinking she was a goddess. She was the fucking, this is no discredit to the rest of Vogue Evolution, but she was the superstar. She was the thing that got them through as far as they did in the competition, because she's a legend. So I got to be in a meeting, like a Zoom call with Laomi on my screen doing the Laomi hair that I can't fucking do it. Can you do that? I don't know how folks be doing that shit. Yeah. But
my braids are heavy.
Go watch Legendary. It is such an amazing.
It's wonderful.
It's so many beautiful black trans people, queer trans people, queer people of color, Latinx people, the Asian community, which, as you all know, the Asian community has been really clung tight to the Vogue community. Willie Ninja, who went over to Asia and taught people how to do the ninja style of Vogue. It's just epic and amazing, and I'm telling you all.
Yeah,
go.
and it shows everyone that ballroom is, and the ballroom community is welcoming, and ballroom belongs with everyone. Just like drag, it belongs with everyone. And so it's great. I agree. People should go watch it.
And also, I'm going to say me and Pepp and Monet have a meet and greet on the 31st. There's a few tickets left. You can go to one of our websites. You can go to you can go to bobthedragqueen.com/sign up. And I think Monet's is I don't know Monet's
MonetExchange.com/meet.
Yeah.
Monet.
What's yours?
Mm-hmm. And then mine is meetpeppermint.com.
There you go. So you can check that out. You can get a chance to have a digital meet and greet with us. We'll send you some signed merchandise. Pepp, I love you. I love having these talks. And, you know, I thought the last was going to be like a one-up, but I think we'll keep doing these for a bit.
I enjoy it.
It's a two-person view. It's the view with two people.
The views of two people.
Yeah. The deuce. All right, that didn't work. All right, bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks.
Bye. Love y'all.